Today we're going to be doing a podcast recording live here, over here, over here. And today we're going to be talking about what to do when the scale is messing with your lovely brain and head. Today my goal really is to help you reframe your relationship to the scale, just how to understand true progress and just how to shift from one of the most important things that I see in women that we work with, typically millennial generation in our late 20s, early 30s, or even up to early or mid 40s, is we are really kind of trained all through growing up to be really focused on external validation from things like the scale to see progress. And it really dwindles away at our own internal trust in our health journey. So that's really what we're going to be working on today. This actually originated from just a number of check-ins with clients where the scale was really bothering them and was really kind of just getting them down on their own progress. So they were, doing all the things, hitting their macros, hitting their steps, hitting their protocols, and the scale wasn't budging. And it makes them want to give up. Naturally so, right? Like when we're not seeing progress, it's very hard to stay motivated. But this is kind of a series of things that we're going to talk about today. There's actually 5 parts of this process that we're going to talk about when the scale is getting you down. That's going to help you overcome this and actually feel grounded and motivated. So, just know that number one, if you are working really hard on your goals and the scale's not budging, like that is not just you. You're not just in isolation, broken, my metabolism's shot, I just can't lose weight. Like this is a lot of times how our brain catastrophizes. We just go straight off the deep end and we think all of these negative things about ourselves. But what's really important to remember is common humanity. Like you are not alone. This is not the only time that this is going to happen to you in your journey. And this happens to literally everyone who is going on a weight loss journey and wants to see progress with changing their body. And so I want to first start with just some facts, just some truth, so we can get grounded in what is real. And so a lot of times, like I said, you feel like you're the only one that's going through this. You feel like you just can't make progress and your body must be broken because the scale's not moving for you. If you are not a health and fitness professional that looks at people's weight loss graphs all day long, then you're probably going to think that there's something wrong with you. But as somebody who has been coaching women for over 9 years now, and we're coming up on 10, which is so cool. I'm excited to celebrate that milestone. I have looked at a lot of weight loss graphs, and I've had clients that weigh in every single day for months and years on end on weight loss journeys. And I can tell you 100% that there has not been a single weight loss graph that has been linear. So if you have fluctuations and on the path down, the scale spikes up, that is 100% normal for 100% of women that I work with. Okay. And so what I would recommend is for a lot of us who don't have as great of a relationship with the scale, we're going to talk about how to really regulate ourselves through this. And as best you can, if you can practice all the 5 steps that I'm going to teach you today, if you can continue to weigh in as close to daily as possible, this is number 1, going to always reinforce your goals at the very beginning of every day. But number 2, give you the most amount of data that you can learn to be objective with and continue to rebuild your relationship with the scale in a more positive way. This is really difficult because a lot of times the scale can elicit an emotional reaction that we have to it, right? But if we give it time, if we work on these 5 steps, then we are going to be able to see the scale number, even when it fluctuates up, and ground ourselves and stay motivated and focused in the process. Okay. So what I would recommend is try to weigh in as close to daily as possible. And if you're not working with a coach, then this is what you should do. And if you are working with a coach, if your coach is not doing this, get a new coach, is weigh in every single day and the average of every 7 days with each other. So these past 7 days compared to the ones before that, compared to the ones before that. And now instead of just getting caught up in the day to day, you're looking at the week to week and the trends over time. And if that trend line of week over week over week is trending down, then you are moving in the right direction rather than getting caught up in the ups and downs. The second thing about the scale is that it's typically the last thing to move. Like if I'm being completely honest with you all, Many of you are not going to see the scale move at the pace that you want. A lot of us are inundated with a lot of really rapid weight loss marketing in the health and fitness space, where we think that 10 pounds in a week, 10 pounds in a month is realistic, when in reality, a good rate of weight loss is about 0.5 pounds per week, up to a pound per week for most women. For men, this can be a little bit larger. And the reason that we have this number is from a percentage of our body weight. And so typically an ideal rate of weight loss is 0.5% to 1% of our body weight. So if you are a 200-pound individual, then 0.5% to 1% is 1 to 2 pounds per week. And so that is the maximum rate of loss that we should be aiming for. And that can sound very painstakingly slow to someone who has a lot of weight to lose, but really these things add up so quickly. When you really take small steps and you consistently do them over time, like it's going to really fly by before you know it. And like I said, the scale moves last, not first. And so what the scale actually tells you is it's like a lag metric of weeks and months of accumulated effort. And a big problem with a lot of people's relationship with the scale is the fact that they're looking at it on like a day 1 to day 2 input versus output of the scale went up today, but I felt like I ate really good yesterday. Or some people will even expand to like the past couple days or the week or the weekend and be disappointed when the scale doesn't move predictably in that short period of time. But if you've ever studied business or business marketing or business analytics, then you might know the term lag metric, meaning it's a metric that follows the inputs into something over a long period of time. And so the scale is a lag metric on your progress. It's not telling you, did you do well yesterday? It's telling you, has the accumulation of the past few weeks and months all added up with cumulatively more positive inputs compared to negative inputs? And that is going to show what the progress is. And that's really frustrating because we want results yesterday. So it's not delayed gratification whatsoever. Lastly, a fact about the scale is that it tells you a lot that is not about fat loss directly. For example, if I stood on the scale right now and I weighed myself, and then I took off my pair of sweatpants because I have shorts underneath and I drank this entire Stanley worth of water, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to be a completely different weight than when I first stepped on the scale. And the same thing happens overnight and with each day as we go through our life. Does every single day of our life look the same? Even if it's really similar, even if we eat a lot of the same foods, it's not the exact same. And so where we're at in our cycle can influence how much water retention our body holds, and therefore what we actually weigh in on the scale in the next morning, the day of our period versus the day before. What we ate the night before can influence the weight on the scale, not from a fat gain perspective, but from the perspective of if I accidentally forgot to eat all day and then I had to eat all of my food and all of my calories right before bed, I'm going to have physical weight of food still sitting in my stomach first thing in the morning when I weigh in, right? It just hasn't digested yet, and that's okay. If I haven't taken a solid dump in 3 days, where do you think that is going to show up? That's going to show up on the scale, right? If you're constipated. So I say that kind of jokingly, but like with love, right? And it's really hard when we're in those emotional moments of stepping on the scale when we feel like we're working so hard and it doesn't give us the number that we want. But we have to learn to anchor in data and facts. We have to learn to remind ourselves, what are all of the things that can influence this number being up right now that could have contributed to it? I will list just a couple more that you might not have expected. Having a sunburn can literally influence your weight on the scale because sunburns create inflammation within the skin where you hold water weight under your skin, right? If you eat food that is extremely high in sodium, then that can actually pull more water into the cell of each cell in your body and help you hold more water weight in your body, again, under the skin. And that's not something that's a bad thing. It's just a consequence of a high sodium intake for a day. Like if you get Chinese food and it's packed with MSG and sodium, right? And it doesn't mean to avoid these things or to try to control all of these variables so tightly. That is how you burn yourself out. It's making sure that you are aware of these things when you weigh in, and maybe it's not quite the number that you wanted. And again, back to what I said at the beginning, is making sure that you have all of these other measures of progress, the averages over time, that are going to help you with grounding in what's actually happening. Lastly, like I said, the scale is a lag metric. It changes last. Here are a bunch of things that you can look at first in order to ground yourself in the fact that you could be making progress, even if you don't realize it yet, which is number one, the obvious would be body photos, taking body measurements, right? Other ways to physically measure progress is visually, and body measurements like taking a circumference of your waist, of your arm, of your hips, of your thighs, wherever you want to see that measurable progress, measure it, right? Take photos. But also, not just in that and like how your clothes fit, but can we also normalize looking for progress in the things that we actually do, like the consistency in our habits, our ability to follow through on the small things like, did I drink my water today? Did I get my steps in today? And if we are actually doing those things, then we can celebrate those as measures of progress if we are more consistent than we used to be over the course of a long period of time, and ground ourselves in the fact that that will pay off. There is no reality where we do all of these healthy behaviors consistently and we don't see a payout for it. It's just that the payout might not come on the time scale that we want, and it might not come exactly the way that we expect it to, right? So just remembering all of these facts about the scale, these are things that I have learned over 9 years of looking at women's weight loss graphs and coaching them through progress and plateaus. So trust me when I say that you're not broken. You're most likely letting the scale ruin your mood and really getting you off track, and it's ruining your consistency. And that is the reason why you have stayed stuck in this loop. Now, let's not ignore the fact that the scale will, oftentimes when we don't have a great relationship with it, elicit an emotional response. And that is also something to pay attention to and tend to, rather than just ignoring it and just trying to stay in logic, right? We have two sides of our brain. One is more logic driven, one is more emotional driven. And so we can't just try to shove everything over to that one side. We have to tend to those emotions and thoughts as well. So when we step on the scale and we see the number that we don't want, our emotional reaction influences our actions, right? So we are emotional beings, whether we think we are or not. We make emotional decisions all day, and every single decision has an emotional component to it, whether we realize it or not. A lot of us think that we're logical decision makers, but we're actually emotional decision makers, and then we justify it afterwards with logic. And that is human nature, okay? And so with that being said, when we have an emotional reaction to the scale, we typically tend to go into a mindset spiral from there. And where this comes from is from what's called over-identification of our thoughts. So when you have a thought, let's say the thought comes up of, I am a failure. We have two options here. This is really important. We have two options. Option number one is we can believe that thought. And we can say, that thought is true. That thought came to my mind, so it must be true. Or we can have that thought and we can look at it and we can say, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if that's true. I don't think that's true. And the problem is we have honestly gotten so distracted in our everyday life, in our everyday society, that we have forgotten how to be mindful of our thoughts. Look at it this way. If we are sitting on a riverbank, the water's flowing by us. We're not in the water. The current's not carrying us away. Those are our thoughts, is the water. Now, are we going to jump into the river and let the current take us down and off the waterfall? Or are we just going to sit on the riverbank and watch those go by? And this is what we need to do when we have emotional responses and thoughts to the scale. Is we step on the scale, a bunch of stuff's going to come up if it's not the number that we wanted to see. Is it, oh, I'm so fat, or oh, I must not be doing enough. I must not be trying hard enough. I must be failing. What's even the point of all of this? I must have messed everything up. I'll just never get to my goal. What if I never get there? Those are all the things that come up when we see the scale have a number that we don't like, right? And yes, we can use logic to ground ourselves and we can think, okay, what are all the reasons that this could be the case today? But also, let's practice emotional mindfulness. Let's just not jump in the river. And when we have these thoughts, let's ask ourselves, like, is this actually true? Or could there be another situation that's true here? And that's where we can insert the logic, right? So meet yourself with some curiosity and don't allow yourself to become led by frustration, right? Because if we let those thoughts spiral and we over identify with them and we think that they're our truth, what's going to happen? If we allow ourselves to over identify with those thoughts, more than likely we are going to try to overcompensate throughout the day. We're more than likely going to self sabotage at some point throughout the day because we are over identifying with the fact that we think that we're not making progress, right? So this is where there's the combination between emotions and logic. All right, let's talk about another really important piece of this, step 3. External validation versus internal trust. This is something that no one talks about. I've never seen anyone in this industry really nail down this the way that we have with our clients. And this is the fact that if we are millennials and we have been trying to lose weight or get fit our whole life, we have slowly eroded our own trust with ourselves through the way that the fitness industry has groomed us. Meaning, we have been trained to look at external size and the weight on the scale and how many calories we burn on our Apple Watch and how many calories we eat with MyFitnessPal and how many calories we burn through walking in our steps for the day and what the scale says, what our measurements say. Like, this is how we've been trained to measure progress. And these things are not all bad. I literally just told you about a bunch of them, right? However, these are ways that we outsource our power. What do I mean by that? Is we often stop trusting ourselves to validate whether or not we are actually doing well. And we start to trust these metrics over ourselves. This is why we kind of feel addicted to MyFitnessPal and hitting the gold stars. And this is also why we feel crushed if we miss our macros for the day. Why we feel crushed if the scale doesn't show us what we want is because we have outsourced our power to those tools instead of using them just as tools. Okay, so what's the shift here? Is we need to take our trust back with ourselves. We need to take our power back with ourselves. And this is not an overnight fix, but we need to recognize the fact that we are letting these outside things tell us what is going well and what's not. And we have forgotten how to tune in. What's tuning in is knowing how something actually feels in your body, right? And so the marriage of this is where we really do get to see your progress be aligned and something that feels good for you rather than pressure. But what does it look like to tune in? So I had a client who was kind of asking me, how do I know if I'm eating too much protein? And I was like, where'd you hear that? And she was like, I don't know, I sometimes I go over my protein goal, but it's because I'm hungry and that helps me feel satiated. And I was like, that's very interesting. And this is a sign, like the way that that question was asked is a sign that this client has really been in the practice of outsourcing her power and not learning how to really have those discussions within herself. So she had basically just told me that protein satiates her and that her protein goal maybe that day was a little low for what she needed that day based on her hunger and her satiety, right? How interesting is that? And so because she has outsourced her power, number one, to a coach, right? She's looking for authority. She's looking for guidance, which is a good thing, but also like to the number that was her protein target. She now thought, am I doing something wrong because I went over this goal, even though she was doing it from a place of trying to quench hunger and have more satiety. And so really that's just a simple example of I redirected her to, okay, well, if you're hitting your protein goal every day and you're constantly really hungry by the end of the day, what if we just added, one more protein source to your day and just swap that out for some other calories that you're eating? Like that might be a better use of your total calorie goal. And now you're going to feel more satiated throughout the day. And she is the one who was able to decide that, right? Or walking, like for example, I get really sluggish if I sit at my desk all day, but if I get up on my walking pad or I start the day with a walk, I have so much more energy and mental clarity. And a big part of our steps, like we have to get more steps in to, let's say, lose body fat, lose weight. But in all reality, like we can get so caught up with what number is this telling us that we forget why we need to walk in the first place. And a really good example of how this has been integrated well recently with like our generation is digestion walks. Is we are walking for the purpose of feeling better digestion. So that's an example of tuning in versus tuning out, right? Tuning out is I want to hit my step goal. And it doesn't matter how I feel when I'm walking or when I'm not, I just need to hit my step goal. Versus I'm going to walk more because it gives me my energy back. It helps me feel like I'm not stiff. It helps my digestion, all of that, right? And then lastly, when I'm hitting my protocols, how do I feel about myself? Meaning, how do you feel about the fact that you showed up for yourself? Is that not worth anything anymore? Right? Like, this is something we're really reinforcing with our clients is the fact that you have to give yourself credit for just doing the things because it's training you to become the version of yourself that actually maintains whatever weight loss that you want to have, right? If you are trying to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, that version of you that is 50 pounds lighter is a version of yourself that shows up and is proud of herself whenever she does check the box. She's not somebody who does the thing and then says like, well, that wasn't enough. I still need to do more. I'm still a failure. Like that version of yourself doesn't talk down on herself like that. Right. And so reminding ourselves to trust the fact that just putting in the work on a day-to-day basis adds up. Right. So I do have a question in here. I'm going to note it. I'm going to send you a message because I want to make sure I get through all of the points before the end of this. Section 4 out of 5, because I do have a hard stop, is our self-talk. And this has kind of been woven into every single thing that we have been talking about in this process so far, is that our self-talk is really governing a lot, right? And this matters a lot more than pretty much every other piece of the journey, because if we have toxic self-talk, we're going to talk ourselves out of being consistent with anything. We're just not going to do the things that we need to do because we're sabotaging ourselves. So when it comes to self-talk around the scale, number one, let's be mindful of it. Let's sit on the riverbank. Let's not jump in the river, and let's see what those thoughts are. Like really just start to pay attention. Like you'll start to notice like how mean you are to yourself, because it's really bad. Like most of us are not nice to ourselves at all. And we would never talk to anyone else that way. And then when you look in the mirror, when you step on the scale, like let's just take it one step forward. We don't need to jump from I hate how I look today, I feel so flabby, so fat, so gross, to I feel amazing, I love myself. Like how fake is that? Like I hate that, right? Instead, let's go to neutral, right? Instead of I hate how I look, I can't believe the scale isn't going the way that I want today, I'm such a failure. Let's just go to it is what it is, right? This is how my body looks today. This is what the weight on the scale is today. It's a neutral fact. It doesn't need to be emotionally charged. And then let's tie in gratitude for what we're doing, right? Like, let's not forget about the work that we're actually putting in. And again, like reminding ourselves that that counts, because if we don't remind ourselves that the daily actions count towards something, then what evidence are we going to have when the scale does spike up unnecessarily? What are we going to be able to tell ourselves about what we are doing and how our progress will pay off in the long run? Right? We need to have more evidence, and that comes from practicing giving yourself credit for the small things. And a lot of us are really just plaguing ourselves with negative self-talk all day long. And it's the reason that we can't get out of these loops. And it's the reason why we can't get out of self-sabotage. So it starts with the cheesy, I'm proud of myself for showing up today, even if I didn't complete the whole workout. It's the seems too simple, I'm proud of myself for drinking my water today. It's the seems too simple for I'm proud of myself for getting on a walk, even if I didn't get all the steps in that I needed to. And then lastly, when it comes to the scale, especially being this thing that we are letting just dictate our whole mood and our whole progress, is let's remember that if we celebrate wins outside of the scale that we notice of how our body's changing, what is that going to do psychologically? It's going to reinforce the fact that we are seeing changes, even if, again, the scale is a lag metric, it comes last, not first. And so if we keep stacking non-scale victories of how we're feeling in our body, how we see it, how it's changing, what it's doing for us, then we will be more reinforced to continue with the behaviors and therefore actually see it through to the point that the scale will eventually move, because again, it's a lag metric that tells us about weeks and months of effort, not a day's worth, right? So every single day, write down something you're proud of yourself for, a non-scale victory of each day, and taking one negative self-talk thought from negative to neutral. And if you do that every single day for, let's say, a month, I guarantee you how consistent you actually are with your nutrition, your training, showing up for yourself is going to skyrocket. Okay. Seeing some familiar faces here, which is awesome. Lastly, I just want to give you guys a reminder that everything that we just talked about is easier said than done. And it is not a super easy process to catch our negative thoughts and turn them around and be kind to ourselves and practice it, because we've been in this cycle of just being such a rude person to ourselves in our own mind for pretty much our whole life, right? It comes from childhood. It comes from how we were parented. It comes from how we have been training ourselves to believe that nothing we ever do is good enough for our entire life. So remember, it's easier said than done, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it, right? It's simple. It's extremely simple. And it's almost too simple to the point where we don't want to believe that that's all it's going to take for you to be consistent and see results. But it is. And it's not simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? And so just expect it to be tough, right? Expect it to be a grind, to dig for that positive thought, or dig for something that you're grateful for about your body, or dig for a non-scale victory, and then actually try to take that seriously and receive that from yourself. That's really hard to do. But when you set your baseline expectation as this is going to be hard, well, then now you're not disappointed when it feels hard. That's just normal, because that's the expectation we set. Because if you think it's going to be easy, if you think you should be perfect at it, if you think that you should just be able to do it all just because you've been fit before in the past, or you've lost weight before, or you've tracked a calorie before, if you think it's going to be easy because of that, then you're fooling yourself, and then you're going to be disappointed when it feels hard, and then you're going to be even meaner to yourself. So just expect it to be tough, expect yourself to be bad at it, and it'll be way more enjoyable. And then lastly, I really like to encourage just romanticizing the process, right? A lot of times we've just conditioned ourselves to believe that health and fitness should be this miserable, arduous, really painstaking, just added hard work to our life. But in all reality, just romanticize the small things, like drinking your water and having a quiet moment in the morning. Romanticize the small things like showing up for yourself, even if the scale did fluctuate, and being kind to yourself and having patience with the process. I have a tattoo here. It was my first ever tattoo that says DIWE. And it means do it with enthusiasm, meaning that if you're on a weight loss journey, I hate to break it to you, but you don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. You're a fully grown adult. You don't have to lose weight if you don't want to, but you're choosing to. If you're watching all of this, you've chosen to lose weight. You've chosen to make this a part of your journey and your story because you want more for yourself and because it matters to you. So if you've chosen to do this, why would you act miserable the whole time when no one's forcing you? So do it with enthusiasm and choose to find purpose in the difficult parts. Choose to embrace the really messy parts of this journey and control the narrative, right? Because this can be miserable if you allow it to be, but it can be enjoyable if you look for where it can be fun and where it can be exciting and where you can find the wins in the small things. So I know that we initially were talking about the scale. So if you joined late, definitely go back if the scale tends to bother you here and there. But this is just a reminder on a whole mindset front. Your psychology is literally what runs your entire weight loss journey. So if you're not paying attention to that, this is your sign to start. This is your sign and reminder to just be kind to yourself. Remind yourself that you're not failing if you're not seeing progress immediately. I just put a post up that explains if you're not seeing progress the way that you want to and you're trying really hard. Go read that. There's some non-negotiables there that you should know on that post. And just remember, the scale is a tool and it is not where your power needs to be outsourced to. Remember that if you are doing the things that you know you need to be doing, I have them written in that post, by the way, if you don't know what you need to be doing, then if you're doing them consistently and you're showing up and you're not letting self-sabotage get in your way, you're going to get there. It just might not happen at the timeline that you want, and it might not happen exactly the way you want it to look on the scale either. Okay. So that is everything I've got for you today. I hope that you guys found this valuable and useful. Let me know if you have any questions. My DMs are always open, and I'll see you back here for the next one.